Good morning, everyone. I hope you, your family, and friends are keeping well and safe. So today we'll be discussing about implementing automation technology, the rise of the modern CFO. Just a quick introduction about myself. I'm Shihan Sharif. I'm the Group CFO of Isanju Ventures. My experience in terms of senior finance experience is in different industries of hotel management, real estate, trading, that's into agri commodities, precious metals, electronics, e-commerce. Also, aside from trading, warehouse fulfillment and investments. My experience spans 15 plus years. I'm presently the Director Secretary of the Board of the Sri Lankan Business Council in Dubai. I'm a member also of the advisory panel of the Accounting and Finance Show Middle East 2020. I'm a member of CIMA UK as well as CPA Australia. I completed my master's from the Chifley Business School affiliated to the Torrens University in Australia. I'm also currently reading for a second MBA, which is on data science and artificial intelligence from the Essential Business School in France. Presently, I'm also reading for a doctorate in business administration from the Heriot-Watt University. That's a quick introduction about myself. Next, moving on, just a slight disclaimer that these views are my personal views. I'm not carrying any institutions or organization views on this presentation, just to be clear. So what is automation? This is a question that most of you know what it is, but in terms of our daily lives, in terms of our work, uh, in terms of our daily work, how does it affect us? What exactly does it do? What does the future hold in terms of automation? How can we improve things based on automation? What are the things that we need to consider when we are performing or implementing the automation technology in an organization? So these are some of the things that we will cover during our presentation. So first, to start off with, automation in day-to-day life. These are most of the things that you have experienced during your day-to-day life. Uh, just an example to start off with: smart compose on emails. So whenever you type an email, there's an there's a suggestion saying that the next word or phrase should be this. Auto type on mobiles, so spell checks, auto spell checks, even suggestions on the next words that we type, for example, on WhatsApp or emails and stuff. Chatbots, these are things that we use when we communicate with probably a telecom provider, education provider, healthcare, for example, just to get some help through a chat system. Smart TV and smart appliances, these are gaining popularity based on voice touch controlled commands. You've also got Bluetooth and Wi-Fi based automation that's also starting to become very popular from recently. Smart lighting, that's something that people look to save money on based on uh, being able to control the lighting system of your homes from the touch of a button on your mobile or a computer. Then facial recognition enabled devices such as mobile phones or even laptops, computers, home security systems with motion control, postings on multiple social media platforms. So for example, if you've got multiple accounts on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and you want to post a single post across all these platforms by the click of a single button, that's possible. Information generated by Siri and Alexa, that's something most of us depend on nowadays for various information needs. Bill payments, it's automated in most cases. For example, the Dubai Now app is available. You could automate all your bill payments through that. You could even automate your purchases through subscriptions. You could subscribe to a certain purchase every week for it to be delivered to you. Self-driving vehicles, for example, these are being tested at the moment, but range from various levels of 0 to 5. For example, cruise control is available, uh, parking systems are available in some of the cars, and these are starting to gain more popularity. A few examples of automation in Dubai. So most of us living in Dubai have experienced this. For example, Salik, when you pass the toll gates, it captures your account through your windscreen. Smart Dubai, there are many initiatives. The Dubai Metro, the driverless transportation system in Dubai? Then how about the robotic policeman that was introduced for the first time in the world in Dubai? Dubai economy has raised a number of initiatives in terms of issuing your trade licenses through electronic systems, payment methods, and so on. And also I've got the radar. So I'm sure most of you, if you've gone above a certain speed, I hope you've not, or I hope you don't. But if you've experienced this, you know what I'm talking about. So the next day when you wake up, you'll automatically receive an SMS or an email stating that you've exceeded the speed. And here you go, you've got a fine. Next, let's just take a quick look at a short video in terms of a research that was carried out recently.
Companies across the globe are taking robotic process automation to the next level. The question is not if, but how RPA will affect your company's future. Protiviti and ESI Thought Lab surveyed executives worldwide and learned that in as little as 2 years, leaders in RPA will use bots in virtually every function and department of their organizations. IT, marketing and communication, product development, finance, sales and biz dev, and more. The results of our study also suggest that using RPA will lead to significant revenue growth. Other important benefits of RPA include increased productivity, better quality and speed in RPA-driven activities, stronger competitive market position, and higher customer satisfaction. Learn more by reading Taking RPA.
Yeah, so that video provided us a lot of information about a recent survey that was carried out in terms of what the expectation is on in terms of automation, revenue increases, productivity improvements, and so on. As well as there was a comment there stating that there's an expectation for bots to be introduced in an organization in every department in the next 2 years. So this was carried out in 2019, so 2 years is by about next year, and we're already starting to see how bots have improved in our day-to-day lives. So on this slide, I've got a question which was asked and which highlights the importance of automation. So this is again a survey that was carried out by Ernst & Young in 2018. The question was, which of the following technologies are most prominent on your boardroom agenda? So the answers were artificial intelligence and robotic process automation, cloud computing and big data, distributed ledger technology, that's blockchain, and other technology. So as you can see, most of the respondents, both in the MENA region as well as globally, stated or responded stating that artificial intelligence and robotic process automation is the item that they expected to take prominence on their boardroom agenda. So this just goes to highlight the importance of automation. So what are the key factors that we need to consider before as well as during the implementation of an automation technology? First and foremost is the scope of work. What exactly are we looking to automate? Is it a process? Is it a decision? Is it a report? Is it something to do with reporting, analytics? What exactly is it? It has to be as precise as possible. Then in terms of flexibility, what's the flexibility that we expect in terms of automation? So for example, you have a certain process today and you look to automate that, but tomorrow the process could change. So how flexible are we in terms of adjusting that into our automation when things change? As well as scalability, that's a very, very important aspect. So our volumes could be a certain number today, but once we automate, up to what level could it handle? Changes required to the workforce. So this is something that most of the companies globally start to worry about. Even now, most of the employees are worried that they will lose their jobs because of automation taking prominence. So what would it be in terms of when you look to automate? Would it require you make certain number of staff redundant? Would it require you to train them in terms of different skills? What would the organization structure be needed to be adjusted to? So these are some of the things that you need to think about before you go ahead with automation. What's the time period that we're looking here? Is it to automate a certain process? Will it take a week? Will it take a month? Will it take a year? That needs to be identified so that we could plan things accordingly. And then another very important aspect is it an enterprise-wide integrated support that you're looking to get from the management? And what's the strategy like in terms of automation? So this is also a very key point, because if you, as a department, as a finance department, are looking to automate certain processes and decisions, but you don't have the top management or the entire organization support, then you're going to be in a problem. So it's always important to have the entire organization going in one direction in terms of automation. The next, in terms of a cost benefit analysis, how does it look like? Or you could also call it a value analysis or a return analysis. So if the cost of automation is going to be, say, $100,000, or the return that you're going to get out of it is only about $10,000, it doesn't make sense to automate it. So that factor is important. But in most cases, they're not. Automation brings in value to the organization. Next, what's the extent of automation? Are you looking to automate an entire process, or are you looking to semi-automate it? So most often, uh, when companies look to partially automate, probably the savings could be higher than having to fully automate it. So again, you need to compare the cost benefit analysis of various levels and options of automation. And another key aspect is the security and risk management. So who will be having controls? What is your security policy? Who will be having access to certain systems? And so on. These are things that you need to think about, document beforehand. Moving on, again, there was another question or another survey rather that was carried out by HFS Research in conjunction with KPMG. This was carried out in 2019. And the question was, what proportion of your current workforce do you expect to be significantly impacted by IA in the next 2 years? So the respondents responded as they expect less than 10% of the workforce to be significantly impacted. That was 14% who responded under that, and 11 to 20%, 38% responded, and 21 to 50% of the workforce to be impacted was responded by 36%, and more than 50%, there were 12% of the respondents. So as you can see, the majority of it fell between 11 to 50%. That's about 74% of the respondents expected that the workforce would be impacted by 11 to 50%. So that's a significant proportion of your staff. So we need to be prepared. So some of the use cases for automation in finance, and so these are some of the things that most of these tasks are things that you as finance professionals carry out in your organizations on a day-to-day basis. So intercompany reconciliations, are you still manually doing them? Are you still doing it through Excel files or manually through any other systems? Bank reconciliations, invoicing, accounts receivable and payable. So this is a very broad area. Are your invoices being raised automatically, or are you manually raising them? If it's manually, then to what extent can you automate it? Are your invoice reminders going out to customers frequently if they haven't paid up? So if they haven't paid a certain invoice within, say, 2 weeks, is your system sending out an automated message? Or are you manually calling them, emailing them? So can't they be automated? These are things that you need to think about. Then in terms of standard journal entries, are you still posting them manually? Is there an option to automate it? If so, to what extent could it be automated? Financial reporting and analytics. This is an area that has been broadly uh, become, it's an area that has been gaining popularity since the last few years. And that's an area that most of the finance professionals are focused on automating stuff in the finance departments. Next, regulatory compliance and reporting. So to what extent does your systems give information that's required for compliance or reporting? So for example, VAT returns, as we all in the UAE submit, right? So does your system generate the reports similar to what the VAT returns look like? Or are you still manually having to prepare all this information? Next is on inventory management. Do you get any alerts when inventories reach a certain level or if it's above a certain level? And what kind of reporting do you get in terms of inventory management? I've also put down exception reporting. That's an interesting area where, for example, if there's an entry posted above a certain value, for example, or if there's a payment that's going out above a certain value, there should be alerts. So these are areas that you need to look at as a CFO. Cash flow and treasury management. These are important areas as well, especially nowadays. Cash flow and liquidity management is very, very critical. So what kind of controls and systems and automations that you've got for this area? Expense management. Are your bills being claimed automatically? Is it through a system or are you manually approving them? And there could be hundreds of thousands of more things that you could add on to this list, depending on the type of organization that your company is in. The approach to implementing automation technology, I've got a few areas here. So you always need to have the end goal in mind. That's the most important thing. You need to have an understanding of your processes, and that's an in-depth understanding that's required. And the level of automation, whether it's full or partial, like I mentioned on the previous slide as well. And the implementation plan, at what phase do you look to implement? What's the timeline? When are you going to test? Testing is a key component. How far are you going to test your systems under different scenarios? Then I've got the advantages and disadvantages of automation. So like with everything in life, you've got advantages as well as disadvantages when it comes to automation. So let's take a look at the advantages first. In most cases, there are a number of advantages, and the main thing that ends up on the high category, high important list is time savings, which results in operational cost savings. So that's the key benefit. It also increases productivity, a high reliability and availability because it's automated, it's machine driven, there's no human interference. Like, for example, if you're working a 10 hour day, maybe in the 10th hour you feel tired, but when it comes to my automation, it's standardized, it's more reliable. So that's why the productivity and the reliability are important in these cases. Consistent and optimized performance, and also significantly higher production output. So given that it's automated, you're able to, for example, if it's a manufacturing company rather, you'll be able to get much higher output as well as if it's a service industry, then much higher service delivery during a certain period of time. So just think about a certain educational course that you're publishing on a website. So you could reach out to thousands, if not millions of people at a certain given time if it's uploaded on a website and if it's based on a subscription. Whereas if it's in a classroom, your room physical space is limited. So the output is restricted. So that's one of the advantages. Let's move on to the disadvantages. So lack of risk assessments in most of the automation projects lead to higher than expected time, and that results in higher than expected costs being incurred. So the real benefit of automation is lost in these cases. Worker displacement and loss of jobs. Like I said, there are a number of instances where this has taken place, for example, in the banking sector. So that needs to be assessed before an automation project is undertaken. Then high capex and upfront investments in most instances. So you might have to invest in a certain number of machines, certain number of systems upfront for which the benefits flow only in the next few weeks, months, and years. There's also instances where there's lack of flexibility. For example, when a certain business process changes, where your automated systems, you're unable to change it overnight. So it requires more time. So it's a bit of lack of flexibility there. Also, in terms of automation, it requires a well documented and well tested out process. So that's something that most of the companies lack on, and lack of testing always results in the lack of completeness of the automation project, and that results in unexpected issues and losses to the company. Its one main item is a risk management framework for automation. That's something that all organizations need to carry out before they perform an automation project. So to start off with, you need to establish the context, identify risks, analyze, evaluate, and treat risks, which are called risk assessment. And then you need to continuously monitor and review, and monitoring and review continues throughout. So the cycle continues. And this risk management framework is applicable not only for automation, but for whatever you as an organization carry out. But I highlighted here because it's very important. There's also a metrics that could be used. So if you're based on your risk impact and likelihood. So if your impact is high and your likelihood is high, it's known as intensive management. Whereas if your likelihood is low and the impact is low, it's acceptable risk, so it's fine. So anything in between, depending on your organization, depending on the size of your company, depending on what exact products and services that you offer, you need to evaluate these risks and identify what are the key risk areas and take action accordingly so that you're well prepared. A few business apps and tools for automation that could be used. So one is Zapier, which has more than 2,000 apps. Automate.io, they've got about 100 plus connectors. There's also a product called Workflow, which can automate certain business processes. And there are so many other products out there. I suggest you to take a look at these, think about what areas of your organization you could automate, and take a step at a time. I've also put down some of the top traits that a modern CFO needs to possess. So if you speak to various different people, they'll say various different things, but I put these down based on lots of research that I've carried out based on organizations that have hired CFOs. So the first is a CFO needs to see the big picture. There's no point in just looking at only the nitty-gritty. There are times where you need to go into that level of detail, but overall, you need to look at the big picture and understand where the organization is heading, what it wants, and what exactly it means from an automation project. In this case, in particular, a CFO needs to be very strategic minded and needs to have a very clear understanding of all aspects of the business, whether it comes to purchasers, whether it comes to HR, how do these functions link with each other in terms of the approval process, the security controls, inventory management, all these things need to be taken care of. And a CFO also needs to be highly analytical. This is something very important. And also needs to create a culture of analytics so that the organization could be taken, could be driven as a data analytics organization. The next or the fourth item that I put down is to be proactive and self-motivated. That's self-explanatory. The CFO needs to drive the rest of the organization. He or she also needs to be collaborative and team-oriented. That needs to be encouraged throughout the organization, not just in the finance department. The CFO needs to have the ability to communicate effectively with all levels of employees, not just the top management, but also the lower level of employees. A CFO needs to have the ability to effectively coach and mentor others so that there is a second line, a third line that's ready, and certain employees could leave the company tomorrow. Are there any big gaps that are created? So that these things will be avoided if a CFO is able to coach and mentor others within the department as well as in other departments to create that kind of culture and be a leader in the organization. Does the CFO have the decision-making ability and strong negotiation skills? So negotiation skills is a very important aspect of a CFO, of a modern CFO. Does he or she have the solid understanding of technical skills? Of course, doesn't need to be a technician, but understanding of technical skills is crucial. Does he or she have strong leadership skills? This is something that a modern CFO needs to possess. Some of these items overlap with each other, but I put them down as they are independently very important. These are the references that I've used for this particular presentation. I've included the links, so please feel free to take a look at the presentation. I've also shared the presentation with the organizers. I'm sure you'll be able to get access to it. Please take a look and please reach out to me if you've got any questions at any time. If you want to share anything with me, any questions, any clarifications, I'm more than happy to help and assist. So thank you. Just would like to end it with a quote that you're either the one that creates automation or you're getting automated. So this is a quote that was given by Tom Preston Werner. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great day ahead. Thank you.